Well, now we're ready for round two. And our second half of tonight's forum is with the candidates for District 55 of the Minnesota Legislative Senate. They will represent 79,000 people and over 172 square miles that include the towns of Belle Plaine, Jordan, Prior Lake, and Shakopee and their surrounding townships. District 55 candidates are Ali C. Ali with the Democratic Farmer Labor Party and Mr. Eric Pratt of the Republican Party and the current incumbent. So we will begin with opening statements in alphabetical order of 2 minutes each. Mr. Ali, you may go first.
Good evening, my fellow residents of our community of Minnesota, Afro-American lands. And thank you, each one of you, to be here tonight. My name is Ali Ali, and I was born and raised in a small tiny country in the Horn of Africa. And I made this journey 19 years ago with 8 of my siblings. And I call Minnesota home for the last 16 years, and Shakopee home for the last 7 years. And I'm running for this because I want to make a difference. I want to represent you, not the corporation. I want to increase funding for education. I want to make healthcare a right, not a privilege. I want to eliminate gender discrimination, and also improve and focus in transportation. I am a different breed. I'm not owned by nobody. And I assure you, I will do everything in my power to be your strong voice. And I know I can do it. I have the stamina, I have the courage, and I call myself a hybrid politician. I mean, I can go either way. It does will benefit a greater good, and also benefit my community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt, 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, and thank you to the Diversity Alliance for holding us in the city of Shakopee for allowing us to use the City Hall. My name is Eric Pratt. As I was introduced, I am the sitting senator for most of Scott County, the communities of Shakopee, Prior Lake, Jordan, and the surrounding townships. I grew up here in Scott County. My mom taught school here for 25 years, and we've been my wife and I raised our family here. My wife and I just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, and we have 2 wonderful kids. One is a senior at University of Colorado. The other is a sophomore at Texas State studying physical therapy. I'm a citizen legislator, so I maintain my full-time job, and I am a senior vice president at U.S. Bank. I've spent 12 years on the Prior Lake School Board working on some of the education issues that continue to face us. And I serve on the committees of education, higher education, transportation, and commerce. And I hope we have a good discussion tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. We'll begin with our questions. And they will be the same questions that we had for the other candidates, but I didn't let you know that beforehand. So consider them still sealed. We will begin with Mr. Ali. The first question, and you will have 90 seconds to answer it, and there will be two 30-second rebuttals allowed per question. Mr. Ali, what issues do you see coming that will be affecting our community because of our growing and diverse citizenry?
This is the main issue, we will talk about it, but mainly, I think education. Education is very important. Education determines what kind of individual you're gonna come, how you're gonna contribute to the society. Do you gonna have a social mobility, self-esteem? You're gonna be able to raise and provide for your family. For that matter, I think it's about time to invest in early child education and make sure our students are well prepared between K-12 and make sure that we have a free college education. It's about time to move on. Why we will have K-12 free, suddenly college, you have to come up with thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars I want to end that and make sure each of our kids have full potential, have 4 free college degree, and will be able to be raise a family and become a good citizen who will contribute. I will also eliminate poverty.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt?
Well, I think the most pressing issue with our growth has been our growth. We dealt with that when I was on the Prior Lake School Board, and I served on the Growth Task Force. Because growth brings a number of issues that face a community. Certainly education. We have more families moving in. We have a need for additional facilities and additional teachers. We have stress on our roadways and our bridges. I was just getting some emails today from people who are complaining that already with our new 169 bridge that is bringing in a lot of the growth, we have a terrible congestion problem, which is affecting the economic viability of this area. And so I think we've got to have our local leaders and our state leaders working together on how we manage the growth itself.
Thank you. Any rebuttals to that, Mr. Ali?
Well, so far, our legislature was not able to come up with the bill. The transportation bill failed. I think it's about time to consider light rail. And if I'm elected, I can guarantee you I will combine both Republican idea, Democratic idea, and pass the bill, because we need to compromise. We don't live in a kingdom. It is democracy. In democracy, it's not always easy to achieve what you want. But if you put political science, you can do it, and I will do it.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt?
Well, you know, I think there's a couple of problems, and what Mr. Ali is getting to is some of the gridlock that we face up at the Capitol. And, you know, the partisanship goes both ways. Now, I'm a founding member of what's called the Purple Caucus in the Senate, where we have an equal number of Republicans and Democrats that get together, and we try to find those areas of commonality. But we also understand that we have areas of differences. Now, we can agree on transit. We can agree that we need to bring workers down to Shakopee. I'm just not willing to force a solution.
Thank you.
Okay.
You get one more rebuttal, yes?
Well, the problem is, to begin with, is elected officials don't represent you. The elected official answer to lobbyists, big corporation, and making political calculation in order to be elected, guarantee their political longevity. My goal will be, if I'm elected, is not if 2020, if I'll be elected or not. It doesn't matter. The matter is, I will do the job, I will be your voice, regardless the party position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. One last.
Well, I think I'm a little offended at the insinuation Mr. Ali is making that I'm bought and paid for by anybody. Now, I grew up in this area, I represent the values of this area, and I represent you. Doesn't matter whether you're old or young, whether you're of color or Caucasian, I represent you. And I don't answer to any lobbyist, I answer to you. And if you don't like the job I'm doing, vote for somebody else. But if you like the job I'm doing, vote for me. But I'm absolutely offended by the insinuation that I'm bought and paid for.
Thank you. Our second question. As a Minnesota senator, how would you examine the issues and make the decisions that reflect and include the multiple viewpoints and diverse backgrounds? Mr. Pratt, you first.
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
All right. As a Minnesota senator, how would you examine issues and how would you make the decisions that would reflect and include multiple viewpoints and diverse backgrounds?
Well, I mean, that's the definition of the job. My door is always open. My door is always open to anyone who lives in this area. My door is open to anyone who has an opinion on the issue that's coming in front of the legislature. I don't have all the right answers. I know that. I have opinions, I have ideas, I think I know how things should work, but I also am humble enough to understand that other people have good ideas, which is why most of my bills are sponsored in a bipartisan manner, why I'm part of the Purple Caucus, so I can find those areas where we agree. And I try to make the best decision that I can based on all the facts that I have.
Thank you. Mr. Ali, do you have your...
I believe if we really represent our district, if we represent our people, if you are the voice of District 55, I think we need to come back to our district. We need to talk to our people. We need to ask questions. We need to organize a meeting to find what is the best way to go for our district. What is the priority for our district? how can we translate in simple level? What will be the compromise? How we can negotiate with the other side? Like Brad said, I agree that there is no cost solution. But by negotiating, by prioritizing, I think there's always room to understand and try to do things. At the meantime, going back to other thing, there is clear cut. We know that our government is dysfunctional, not only Minnesota level, but nationwide. Again, we must retire money from politics. If private money, dark money, is not retired, and Pratt making an announcement now is accusing him to be owned by a corporation. My theory is, even though it doesn't have to be in personal level, but the party itself, we need how this is going around. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand what's wrong in politics. We failed our people, period. And I will try to do my best with your help.
Thank you. Any rebuttal, Mr. Pratt?
No, I think just a little bit of clarification, and that's, I agree with Mr. Ali that it's about building relationships, which is why I've built relationships with a number of people in the community. I haven't built them all yet. I'm working on it. But certainly when I have a question about something that's going to affect the hospitals, I call Mike McMahon at St. Francis. I call Chief Tate. I've called Sheriff Stednicka, and I imagine I'll have the same relationship with Sheriff Hennon, as well as the chiefs and the school board members and the superintendents in all the areas. And so that's how we get our issue, and that's how we represent this community.
Thank you. Mr. Ali? Further rebuttal?
It's always room for improvement. We can't change the way we think. We need to have a full understanding what's going on in our community. We need to have understanding what's going on a state level. I think we need to be focused and flexible, but at the same time, we need to be independent thinker.
Thank you. Our third question. How will you support the Shakopee Diversity Alliance's efforts in educating, celebrating, and addressing the needs of our diverse community? Mr. Ali?
Well, I had the privilege to I was born as a French citizen. I grew up from age 4 to 25 with a Caucasian mind and black body. When I went back to my community at the age of 25, I fully understand. I am a hybrid thinker as well when it comes to diversity. I did different culture. I went to different religion. We need to really understand the culture itself. I can go from European culture to African culture in a minute. But at the meantime, what is lacking is we have the invisible wall between us. We are divided by ethnicity. We are divided by religion. We are divided by culture. We must break it. And I can do it because I have done in the past. We need to create more action. This is a great place. We should help Diversity Alliance organizing more meeting, organizing more involvement of youth and elder. In that sense, we can build. 2 weeks ago, Eric, Brad, and I worked together at the Somali daycare. That was a great moment, side by side. Republican, Democrat, Independent, black, white. People come from all over. It was a touching moment. After 19 years that I felt, wow, what a journey. I made it. I'm real American now. I am in. I'm not outside. That's what we need.
Thank you.
And I know I can do it.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt?
Well, I think one of the things that makes this a great place to live and a great place to raise a family is that, for the most part, I think we're accepting of all cultures and of all people. Now, it's true that back when I was a kid, this was not a very diverse area. I mean, I guess it was diverse in the fact that you had Lutherans and Catholics and Methodists, but it wasn't diverse in the way that we see it today. But what I notice is that it doesn't matter what your background is, where you came, you're my neighbor. And as long as you came here to raise your family, contribute back to the community, you're welcome. And so when we talk about what happened at the Al Huda daycare, it wasn't about whether or not it was black or white or immigrant or native. It was about neighbors helping neighbors in a time of distress.
Thank you. Any rebuttal?
I think diversity is very difficult. It is difficult indeed. But without it, it's very dangerous. We have opportunity in this country to have a multicultural society. And I think we can do better. We're better than that. And I know if we come together, we can be the example of Minnesota and beyond to build a grade in District 55. And with you, with your help, I think we can do more.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt.
So serving on the education committee, I had the opportunity to be meeting with a teacher of the year, Lance Stevens, and I have a feeling Ms. Stevens and I don't see eye to eye on most political issues, but she was having some real success with her students of color, and I asked her, I think I finally said in a long-winded way, what's your special sauce? What's your secret? How do you get these kids to learn? And she said, I hold them to the same expectation that I hold everybody else to. And I think that's what we've got to start doing. The credo on here is diversity is not about how we are different. And I think that's what we've got to get back to.
Thank you. Our next question. What can be done statewide to achieve greater diversity involvement? How can we get more underrepresented groups of people involved? Mr. Pratt?
Well, I think there are a lot of different ways. I think it's forums like this. I'm proud to see a number of folks here that I've met in the past, but also some very, very new faces. It's about knowing that your representatives are accessible to you. They want to hear what you have to say. Ibrahim and I were talking offline, and he invited me to something, and without hesitation, I said yes. And somebody asked him, well, how do you get Senator Pratt to show up to these things? And the answer is, I ask. And that's all that it is. I know I am available to you because as your senator, I am your servant.
Thank you. Mr. Ali?
Like you said earlier, I think we become a diverse minority is booming. But on the other hand, are we really started from the same start? If some of us have running marathon 10 miles ahead, it's very hard to catch it. That's what's going on. And why? Let's go back to poverty. The gap. If you don't have a good education, or if you don't have enough resources to compete in early childhood education, you're not going to make it. Even though the opportunity is there, you don't have enough resources. That's why we need to invest into early childhood education and make college free. On the other hand, we have a huge problem of broken families. And why? Mass incarceration. The war on drugs must be repealed in order to give a breathing room for minority, being targeted more than any other race. A job training, access to good housing, good neighbor. We don't have all those things for everyone. We must invest, we must do job training, we need to give the same opportunity. It doesn't matter if it's there. As college is $50,000, if you only making less than $20,000, how are you going to make it? There is no way someone making $7 can send his son of dollars to Harvard University.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt.
Well, there certainly isn't equity and opportunity right now. And you can see that in the Minneapolis School District when you have less than 50% graduation rate. We've got to do better. And it's not, yes, schools need stable and reliable funding, but they also need to do a better job. We have failing schools and failing school districts in this state, and the status quo is not moving these. So we've got to allow these students the opportunity to escape a failing system and find an opportunity, whether it's Harvard or Heritage Prep, whether it's Cristo Rey, and a number of other options. We've got to free up these kids to pursue their dreams.
Thank you. Mr. Ali, one last.
Well, think about it. Most of the family in Minnesota, some of them, they don't even have a food at the table. There are 33 million Americans cannot provide 3 meals a day. And how empty stomach when someone becomes successful? The parent is struggling with subsidized, underpaid, doing 2-3 jobs. They're not there to help their kids. Native American, they're forgotten involved. Even in our own community, need big help. So we need again to invest into childhood education.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt, one last time.
Well, we have some great programs that are helping people. There's Northside Achievement Zone in St. Paul Promise neighborhood. They're helping kids be successful in school by addressing the very issues that Mr. Ali mentioned. that we set up families to be stronger and give them counseling on how to be better parents, that we give them the resources they need to get healthy meals, that we get them stable and reliable housing. That's not government doing that. That's the communities coming together and meeting the needs specific to that community, and that's where it can happen better than at the state.
Thank you. What do you see as the benefits of having various ethnic, racial, and other communities living and working in Shakopee and the surrounding area? How does your background support working with these diverse languages and cultures? Mr. Ali?
Well, like I say, when you come to culture and when you come to language, I can say like I said earlier, I'm a hybrid. I speak more than 4 or 5 languages, and I live in different parts of the world, and I'm able to switch from one to another anytime. So I have no problem with that. I know the differences. I deal with them in the past. It's beautiful how the differences. And that's how we can grow. I got a 4 beautiful daughter, 2 sons. Am I gonna marry Caucasian, Spanish, Black, American? It doesn't matter. But again, we must go back to help them, from the beginning. Think about it. My 4 daughters will be paid less than a man. In America today, in this district, a woman make 77 cents per dollar. It's about time to retire that. How can we discriminate against our wives, mother, daughters? If you give me the privilege to serve you, I will be the champion for women cause, not only District 55 or Minnesota and beyond. And I know I can do it. And I started at the age of 12 advocating for women's rights, against female genital mutilation, for the rape victim. And together, my sisters, wife, mothers, let's stand up. Let's elevate women's cause once for all and retire from American politics.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt?
Well, I think our history as a nation has shown that we've benefited from the integration of cultures throughout history. It was only 100 years ago that the Irish were considered second-class citizens, and I think we're beyond that in a lot of ways. Now, the benefits to having multiple cultures in our community, I think, is what I've seen in my own kids. My own kids are more culturally aware. My own kids are more globally aware of what's going on, and I think that's been the benefit of our growth in this area.
Thank you. Any rebuttal?
A couple of months ago, Sissy Hutchinson and I was in the parade, and a little girl waved us to say hi. Her mom said, "Put them, they're Democrat, they're bad." We don't become prejudiced. We don't become racist. That's been taught. As a parent, as a community, we must start. We can change it. We can frame it little kids at an early age. They don't become prejudiced. We taught them. We must end.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt, rebuttal?
I don't have an answer for that.
Thank you. Thank you then. Our next question is, what would you suggest for better ways to improve relationships with law enforcement in our diverse community?
Excuse me. One of the things about being a state legislator is that what we do is a one-size-fits-all. When we pass a law, it's the same for every community, every person. I think when you talk about building relationships with police, that's more of a community effort, because the communities are so much different. They have different needs. They have different challenges. Now, what we in the state can do is listen to those police and listen to those communities and find out where the barriers are that are holding them from building those relationships, but it's not us for building them. Now, a lot of times what Representative Lunan and I do is we bring people together. They may not know who to talk to. We bring them together and allow them to talk and solve their own problems.
Mr. Ali?
Well, I do have faith in our police departments. I think they're doing a great job. They put in their life in line. But in the meantime, when we come to race relations, we know what's going on around the country. You see what's happening around even Minnesota. What's the solution? If someone has broken tail light, don't stop him. Send him a citation. That's supposed to be a law. don't open private prison in order to feed them with minority. That's a good law to pass. When we come to police hiring, we must to hire minority as well. In my understanding, if majority proportion grow in our district, at the same rate, the police department, maybe they have maybe 24% of our police department in our district must be maybe minority. That's how we can relate. You know, I cannot be fully understand Asian culture. Someone from Asia will understand much better. I think we have a qualified student, we have college grad, able to do job. Let's open the hiring process for our police department. That's the only way we can be inclusive. We can't say we don't do this, we don't discriminate at the same time. Not only talk, the action matter. We must to show the action, how we care, and hire people from all over. It doesn't matter who they are, but we need to have a representation. No taxation without representation. That must end.
Thank you. In the interest of time, unless someone has a burning rebuttal, we'll move on to the final question. Our last question is, at the state level, what will you do to close the achievement gaps that do exist between the diverse student backgrounds? Mr. Ali.
Well, to begin with, get rid of we should do everything not to send people in prison to begin with. The low crime, people with non-violent crime supposed to be free. This is a burden in our taxes. At the meantime, we need to give them resources to go to school, early childhood education. We need to give them a good healthcare, universal healthcare. They don't have to worry about the bill, crumbling bill. We need to, with job training, with a good job training with Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, another company, and come together and give them a boost. If you don't elevate them from poverty, then there's no way they can compete. We must send a structure. The way is a structure. The lower will be always stay in the bottom, and the rich always drop. We need to free ourselves from the corporation. We need to free ourselves from big money. We must end modern slavery. The new Jim Crow era must end. I know we can do it. We're better than that. We have a wonderful institution, better in the world. But we're not on it. We can show the world we can do better. Our prison almost 3 million in American prison. In most European and Scandinavian countries, they close the prison. We not supposed to feed the prison. We must help people in need.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt, I want to re-clarify that we're talking about the what can you do at the state level that would help close the achievement gaps that do exist between our diverse student backgrounds.
Well, thank you. I think there's a couple of things that can be done, and I've worked across the aisle to sponsor bills to do this. The first one is the most important thing in a child's academic career is whether or not they're literate in third grade. And so I sponsored a bill with a bipartisan bill that would have put in place a personalized learning plan for any student that's not reading at grade level by third grade. Now, I don't know if it's because the student is dyslexic or having English as a second language or a learning disability, but we develop a plan unique to that child. The second is that we graduate kids that don't have the skills to succeed in the world. We took away the graduation standards, minimum graduation standards test to show that they were proficient. And so what I've also proposed is that we allow students to stay in school. The current law says they can stay in school till they're age 21. We allow them to refuse to graduate if they're not meeting minimum proficiency, so that we're not graduating kids and pushing them out into the world before they're ready. And finally, I think we've got to look at kids trapped in failing schools and allow them options to get out beyond the current open enrollment, to get past some of the hurdles that Mr. Ali mentioned, that they have to be able to get to school safely, they have to make it to where they want to go.
Thank you. Any rebuttal, Mr. Ali?
Yes. Again, you are product of your environment. If you struggle in your life, if you work in 2 jobs as a single mom, you have no time to have your kids. You raise 2 parents to raise a child. we must invest, give them a chance to send their kids an early education. The housing is another problem. Able to have access to the good credit. The poverty is the huge problem to hold those people down.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt, you have a rebuttal?
Well, I would just go back to some of the good work that's being done by the Northside Achievement Zone in the St. Paul Promise neighborhood, which is helping families access the resources that are already available that they don't know how to access on their own. And that's having a real effect, a real positive effect on the students in the classroom. And so if we can continue to work with these community partnerships to meet those needs, I think we're better off than a statewide solution.
Thank you. We have now come to the conclusion of our questions. We will have final closing statements by each candidate, beginning in reverse alphabetical order. Mr. Pratt, you are first.
Well, thank you. It's been a real pleasure to have this opportunity to speak with you tonight. I serve in the Senate because I believe everyone should have a shot at the American dream. Now, you've heard some very, very clear differences tonight. My opponent believes that the American dream is given to you by the government. He judges fairness based on the outcome. I believe the American dream is your dream. It's your individual dream. The American dream is about opportunity. Now, I'm willing to admit that we're not doing as good a job as we can in making sure everyone has an equal shot. And we've got to do better at that. But we need to allow people the opportunity to achieve their full potential. I'm blessed, I think we're all blessed to live in this great country and this state. Our forefathers were self-driven, and we became the most powerful economy, the largest economy in the nation, not because government came in and took care of everybody, but because we unleashed the power of the individual to go out and make their own way, to achieve what they could achieve. And some very successful people, Walt Disney, for example, failed many, many times, but they finally succeeded. Why? Because they had that drive. Not everybody is meant to be a CEO, but everybody is there. And I'll talk about my family just briefly. My grandfather had to quit school after 9th grade and work in a coal mine. For him, a leg up was going to the tractor factory. My dad was the first to graduate in our family, and I would not be sitting here today as your senator if my grandfather had not left the coal mine. We were on subsidized housing when I was in kindergarten, and my parents worked hard to improve their life, and I want everyone here to have that same opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Ali.
Thank you. To begin with, government. Why government? If we believe Republican, they shouldn't even run for office because government is bad. Why you want to be part of something is bad? Folks, I am running for office. I am running for you. I want to be your strong voice in St. Paul, not the corporation, not the wealthy. It is my wish to bring a productive, a constructive, shared idea to St. Paul. I'm going to invest in education. Education is a machine to success, mobility, self-esteem. We must invest in K-12 education and make college free. I'm also advocating for single-payer healthcare system for all. I'm going to end gender discrimination against women. I will make sure we take care of our road and bridges. Another difference between us is the government for Republican is to help the private company, to help the private prison. The banking you bankrupt, we must give them money. I want to help you if you get bankrupted. I want you to stay in your house if you go down until you get a job. We must not follow the scare tactic of Republicans. Very soon, the air you breathe will be private. They may be working on it now. Don't be afraid, don't be scared. Government is for you, by you is your money. You remember 2008, how many private company was bailed out? How many of you lost their houses? I would love you to stay in your house and take your money back rather than to bail it out. When the company failed, it's not socialism. It's capitalism. When you fail, should we make the road bridges private? High school private? But very soon we're going to outsource presidency. A CEO will be our president. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Thank you, Mr. Ali, your candidates for the state senate. And thank you to our audience, and welcome back, and we'll see you at the next forum.